All right. So I guess everybody here. Is aware of what is sanitation. Though in India we define sanitation in various ways. Sometimes solid waste management is also part of it. Sometimes it isn't. But for the sake of this session, sanitation would mean for us would be collecting and disposing of excreta and community liquid waste in a hygienic way so as not to endanger the health of individuals or a community as a whole. So managing excreta from its birth to its death, and also trying to understand how it flows through the city, and how shit flow diagram really helps us to understand sanitation of a city is what we're going to cover. So why Sfd started? So in around 2013-14, some of the researchers realized that any number of projects which happen across the globe, it's mostly we're talking about sewerage networks. So Sfd is not against sewerage networks or STPs, but so these couple of researchers thought, let us try and map whatever sanitation solutions a service provider is giving, how much population are we able to cater to? And if we are supposed to map excreta of each and every person of a town, how does it look like? And with that question in mind, the scribbling of arrows happened, and that's how the birth of SFDs was observed. So this was so a couple of researchers from World Bank and some individual consultants had done the very first 12 SFDs across the world, and then a group of institutions came together. You can see I'm not going to name them. They came together to make this methodology much more stronger, and also the process of developing or the tool to develop SFD much more simpler for people to use. The very first SFDs which I had worked on was an Excel-based tool, which was very, very tough to use. You are very fortunate you don't have to use that. So what is an SFD? It's an effective communication tool, advocacy tool. Chanchal also mentioned. It helps you to engage with political leaders and sanitation experts, civil society. It's a tool for engineers, planners to feed into better planning. It is based on contributing population. So it's not a very, very precise engineering tool, but we are going to talk about excreta in terms of population. It represents public health hazard overall. And it can help you to prioritize your sanitation investments. We'll see how it happens. So as I've said in the beginning as well, SFD is not just the graphic. There is a report to it, and there is a record of data that you have collected or used to develop that SFD. All of this, when it comes together, this is the whole complete package, the SFD, which is for a town you can do. So the graphic is there, the report is there, and in the report, you also cover what exactly is the data source that you've used to develop the SFD. So this is how a shit flow diagram looks like. I think quite a few of must have already seen this red and green arrow kind of graphic. This is what we call as master SFD. So just to give you some idea what you are seeing in front of you, this is the graphic, which is the end result, the SFD for a town. What you see at the top is, of course, the sanitation service chain. I think everybody knows: containment, emptying, transport, treatment. What you see on your leftmost column is the three broad ways excreta can be generated in a town. Either it could be an off-site sanitation solution or a non-sanitation solution, or you may not have a solution altogether. There can be certain percentage of population in the town which is defecating in open. So I'll pause here just to give a little bit more attention to off-site and on-site. Many times people confuse what constitutes offsite sanitation really, and what would be called as an on-site sanitation. So to really put some more light to it, maybe I'll throw some questions, and it would be good if I can have some volunteers who could answer it. Okay, so let's say there is in a town, there is a household which is connected to a septic tank which is overflowing in an open drain. And every day there is liquid overflowing from the septic tank in the open drain. And we are just talking about the containment stage here. What, according to you, anybody can answer, is this solution? Is it an off-site solution or an on-site solution? I would request more and more people to participate. Let's make it interactive. Guessworks are also allowed. If somebody is answering in the chat, I'm not able to see it. See.
Yeah, Bhutesh, can I share my thoughts on this?
Sure, please.
See, the question is very relevant question.
Can you also share your name, please, before answering?
Yeah, I'm Mithilesh Mishra, Mithilesh Kumar Mishra.
Yes, sir.
See, what I find is this is not a solution. And maybe called as an offsite or onsite both. If it was not overflowing, it would have been an offsite solution. But since it's flowing, it's entering into the onsite system.
Okay, all answers are correct, I would say. Anybody else wants to add to it?
Could you please repeat the question again, sir?
Yeah. Okay. So the people who've already slept, I'll repeat the question. The question is, if a household is connected to a septic tank, I believe most of you understand what's a septic tank, and the septic tank is overflowing in an open drain. And of course, every day there is liquid or a supernatant or an effluent which is flowing into an open drain. Now, I'm talking about at a containment stage. We are not going beyond what is happening with the fecal sludge which is emptied, or the supernatant which is flowing through the city and wherever it is going. We are at the containment stage still. I'm trying to understand whether this kind of system will go in an off-site system, qualify to be called as an off-site system, or an on-site system. So that's the question.
We have 5 responses, and people are responding it as on-site sanitation, sir.
Okay, so we have a couple of on-site solutions, and Mithilesh ji said that it could be called either of the two because it's like a combination of the two, maybe. Okay, anybody who strongly feels it is an off-site system can unmute yourself and share your thoughts. Okay, fair enough. So let me take another example. Let's say there is a household which does not have a septic tank, and the black water, let's call it black water from the toilet, which is excreta plus flush water plus whatever goes into the toilet, it is directly flowing into the same open drain in the same town. What will you call this kind of a system?
Can I respond?
Sure, anybody, please.
I would say it is not sanitation. It is insanitary condition. It is a kind of open defecation, I believe.
Right. In essence, it is equivalent to open defecation. Very right. But yeah. Okay. Let me take another example. Why I'm throwing some examples so that you understand how shit flow diagram really captures all of this. Let's say there is a twin pit system. I think that's an on-site system. Everybody will agree. So I'll not go too much into it. Okay. So just to clarify, when the very first sample that or the very first question that I asked was when a septic tank is overflowing in an open drain. So when I need to explain it to any layman, I try not explain it in a way that if after a toilet you have some or the other kind of a box in place, pardon me for using this word here, but that helps to understand better. If there is some or the other kind of a storage unit or a box, whether it's a leaking box or a lined box or a box with compartments, is a separate question. If you find a box after the toilet or the user interface, you are talking about an on-site sanitation system, because there is some or the other kind of storage or partial treatment which is happening right at the site. Whereas if there is no box, your toilet is directly connected to a sewer network, it is directly connected to a closed drain, or it is directly connected to even an open drain. It may not be a good system, as Shibal said, it's equivalent to open defecation. So what you see, the red arrow, which is originating from off-site sanitation, that red arrow is in a way representing a toilet connected to open drain. Yeah. So that brings us to a very basic question. What is going behind the calculations when you draw an SFD? How do you decide whether the arrow turns red or green? That's so we'll understand this next. But before we dive deeper into red and green, let's try and understand the terminologies here. So you can see there is WW, which is wastewater, of course, and wastewater will always and always originate from an off-site sanitation system. Okay. Now we are trying to understand from SFD point of view. Similarly, from an on-site system, there can be two products. Like a septic tank, there is an overflow, which is effluent or a supernatant, which you can see on your, I hope everybody can see the master SFD. It's called SN, supernatant. And there is fecal sludge. So I believe most of you must have heard this term fecal sludge, but let's spend next couple of minutes to understand what is fecal sludge really. Can somebody help me define fecal sludge? What do you understand by fecal sludge when you hear this term?
Yes, Mithilesh again.
Coming out
Can you repeat? I think you were not audible.
waste coming out from septic.
Okay, if I could hear you correctly, you said the waste coming out of septic tank. Okay. Anybody else? Mayank, did you want to respond?
The same thing, very repeated.
Okay. Anybody else?
Undigested sludge.
I think it is partially, or I mean, not undigested sludge coming from the septic tank or any from the septic tank or any kind of holding tank. Yeah.
Okay. So another term, holding tank, is also an on-site sanitation system. Okay. All right. Okay. In interest of time, let me just try and define fecal sludge for all of you. So fecal sludge is something which is not, so sometimes we call, so let's say the box we were talking about, whether it's a septic tank or a pit latrine or a twin pit system or a holding tank or a not so properly designed septic tank or a tank which is having an open bottom. So in India, I believe you're from different parts of the country, you would have seen different kinds of on-site systems that we've invented, the jugaads that we have all over the country. Some jugaads are really good. They are appropriate for the local conditions. I'm not saying jugaads are always bad, but so that semi-solid part or that partially digested stuff, as some of you said. So if I kind of see through a septic tank, let's try and understand from a septic tank, and then we'll look at other options. If you like cut the septic tank in half longitudinally, you will see there is scum at the top. There are some kind of soaps, grease at the top, and then in between, if you're properly maintaining the septic tank, there will be the liquid portion, and at the bottom there will be sludge which is settled down, which will constitute partially digested sludge. There will be fresh sludge at the top, and the mixture of the three. So while you desludge a septic tank, while you empty a septic tank, the mixture of the three, the scum, the liquid or effluent, and the sludge which is settled down, all together is called fecal sludge. Now, there can be fresh fecal sludge from a unit like a public toilet or a community toilet, and that there can be partially digested sludge from a septic tank of a household, because the time duration between the two desludging generally in a household is much higher as compared to a public toilet or a community toilet. So, okay, I'm not getting in too much deep into that, but there is another term which is there in the market, which is called septage. So you don't have to confuse yourself. So septage is that fecal sludge which you desludge from a septic tank. In fact, it's in the name itself, septage. Yani, we're talking about septic and wastage. You join the two. Septic wastage is septage. So in very, very simple words, fecal sludge is what you extract from a box, any kind of box. And septage is a subset of that fecal sludge, which means that fecal sludge, which is desludged only from a septic tank, is called septage. Having said that, but in India, we still use the two terms interchangeably. But technically speaking, septage is only going to get originated from a septic tank. And saying the statement that what comes out of septic tank is fecal sludge is also not wrong, because fecal sludge is a much broader term. Okay, so what you see from an on-site system, there is supernatant and also fecal sludge. Fecal sludge is what you empty after 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. You have seen, you must have seen the duration changes from place to place. And supernatant is something, if you're talking about a septic tank or a holding tank which is overflowing into an open drain or a soak pit even, supernatant is what effluent which overflows from a septic tank, whether in an open drain or in a small bore sewer or in a sewer, what liquid which comes out every day. So with time, the quality of supernatant deteriorates because the quantity of fecal sludge, or the sludge which is settling down rather, is increasing, and the liquid, the quality of the effluent which should be partially treated, slowly and steadily starts reducing with time. And that's also an indication, in a way, that it's time to desludge your septic tank. Anyways, so wastewater will always originate from an off-site sanitation system. Fecal sludge and supernatant will come out of an on-site sanitation system. And open defecation, I think I don't need to talk too much about. And so now the important question which we come to is, how do you decide whether an arrow would, let me call it an arrow for the time being, will be red or green?
May I?
Okay, so I'll come to this point in a while. Let's look at, so just try and as of now understand this is a graphic of a town, and let's try and understand how this graphic really helps us. Chanchal also only said that already had shared that it helps in advocacy. So this is an example of an Sfd example from Tiruchirappalli. This was done way back in 2015. I'm sure the situation has improved, but this was one of the good towns back in 2015. In fact, when Bill Gates met Prime Minister Modi sometime back, they discussed sanitation using a shit flow diagram. Yeah, so recently, there was an advisory issued by Government of India on on-site and off-site sewage management systems. There also, it is being suggested that while you're trying to plan sanitation of a city, or you want to do city sanitation planning, it's good to do a shit flow diagram as a baseline. Personally speaking, we have used shit flow diagram to do not only do advocacy, we were able to even arrange funds for treatment plants by using shit flow diagram. So in a way, it's an advocacy, but it resulted in arranging for funds for treatment facility as well. Once this SFD was shown to, so this example of is Chunar. Chunar is a town, small town in UP near the river Ganga. And when we showed the shit flow diagram to NNCG that this town is totally dependent on on-site systems, and how maybe an FSTP could really help Chunar to go up on the ladder of sanitation. It helped us to convince NNCG for funding the projects there.
Mitush, Pankaj Mathur this side from UNICEF. Can you hear me?
Sure, please.
Can we go back to the Trichurapalli example to see, can we get, maybe 2 minutes or 3 minutes on this in terms of understanding the different terms over there? Like, for example, wastewater content 54%, wastewater content delivered to treatment 40%, that's very clear. But, the different parts of it, like, for example, X% is not content delivered to the treatment. What is the meaning of this? I mean, if we can give, 2 minutes or 3 minutes, so then it will be more clear to us in terms of, using it in future.
Right.
Yeah.
Pankaj, would you like to ask a specific question? That would really help me to respond, and there'll be some interaction as well.
No specific question, but if we can take example. Yeah, Professor.
Just intervene. Yeah. So, Vitesh, can you just demystify in a very layperson's language?
Sure.
Explain the visual that you have displayed on the screen for Trichurapalli.
Just an example.
Why you have made that top portion green? Why you have putting one down arrow, one straight arrow, so that everybody do for their respective towns once that understanding gets enhanced. So just simply explain the nuances of this. Thank you.
Pankaj, I would say hold your thought for a couple of minutes. In my subsequent slides, I will be diving deeper into it.
Great.
Yeah.
Sure, no problem. Great.
So I'll just quickly skim through the slides, which is just showing the use of SFDs. It is not just being talked in India, across the globe. Shit flow diagram is being used. This was some toilet expo in China where, again, SFD was used. This is the website, sfd.susana.org, which you could use to access all kinds of material on shit flow diagram, the past SFDs done, the methodology of doing an SFD. There is online tutorials as well, and also the graphic generator. So the tool that I was talking about that we have worked upon and improved upon several years is called graphic generator, which you could use. You could download if internet is an issue, or you could directly use it online to develop an SFD. Okay, so of course this we have. So worldwide there are several SFDs done across the world. These are some of the numbers. So what is it that Sfd has achieved till now? I've covered briefly, but just to maybe a minute on it. It has, of course, helped us do advocacy. Even WaterAid, Chanchal was also saying that. It has helped us to do, so when we were working with the state of Uttar Pradesh, what we did, we developed SFDs for 66 towns, and we kind of combined those SFDs to do a SFD for the whole state. And that helped us to really push hard for a state level policy on FSM. So not just at the city level, we could use SFDs at the state level as well. Then we've used SFDs for doing city sanitation planning. And off lately, we realized that if you do an SFD after 3 years or 4 years, it also helps us to monitor the progress the town has made. That's also one of another use of SFDs that we have observed. So this is what I was talking about. We did SFDs for 66 towns, and a cumulative SFD for the state of Uttar Pradesh was also done. This is what a state level SFD looked like. And this helped us to, as I already shared. Okay, city sanitation planning we've done. This is what I was referring with respect to monitoring. So in 2017, the SFD for Bijnor looked like you can see on your screen, and they've worked hard. They operationalized the STP, and so we'll come to the red and green. That's the question we had just parked for some time now. And here we are. So let's and why I said that we'll deal it here. So I've not put all the arrows together. We will see one by one what one arrow reflects, and I think that will make it much more easier to understand. So right at the top, you will have the name of the town, the level of SFD. So there are several levels of SFD you can do based on the level of effort you want to put in to develop an SFD. There's level 1 SFD, level 1, 2, and 3, where 3 is the comprehensive one, where you do a lot of primary data collection as well. And level 1 is where you have a brief report, majorly secondary data, some of the key informant interviews, and a small visit to the town can help you do level 1. Level 2 is you spend more time in the town, and level 3 is, of course, you do a lot of primary data collection to develop a level 3 SFD. But of lately, we realized that doing a full report is a little bit discouraging for people to do an SFD, and that's how we came up with an SFD light version, which is it's just like an executive summary. It's a 4-pager report, which in last couple of years we have observed that a lot of people have used SFD and also uploaded their SFDs on the Susanna platform, doing an SFD light version. So those are about the levels of SFD. Of course, this is the sanitation service chain. I hope everybody is aware of this. And this we have already touched upon, that there are 3 ways of excreta generation and also flow in a town. Okay. So you see there are, though it's like one box, but there are 3 boxes, and the boxes have different widths. So so box of each width, I mean, the width of each of the box is telling you the percentage of population dependent on that particular sanitation system. And we touched upon several systems to understand what is an offsite system. That, of course, is taking excreta away from the source is an offsite sanitation system. Whereas where you're trying to store the excreta for some time, howsoever small or big it is, it's an on-site system. And of course, when you don't have a toilet, it's open defecation. So the width of each of these boxes is representing the percentage of population depending on that system. And if you add all 3, it should add up to 100%. Again, when we dive deeper into the terminologies and which arrow is going where, we need to understand why an arrow turns red or green. So this is what the graphic generator does for you. You don't have to really think too hard about it. You just need to enter data appropriately. But for your understanding how graphic generator thinks about it and produces an SFD for you, the question that is being asked is at each of the stage, whether it's containment, whether it's emptying, whether it's transport, whether it's treatment, the question being asked is whether that system at that stage is able to contain the pathogen transmission to the general public. So I'll repeat. You need to ask yourself, are you able to contain the flow or spread of pathogens from excreta to the general public at that stage? If the answer is yes, we are able to limit that pathogen transmission, then your arrow turns green. But if the answer is no, because of XYZ reason, there is a possibility of pathogen transmission, then your answer is, or your arrow is going to be red. Okay. Now, so you don't have to confuse between these two terms. One is contained and the other is containment or a containment system. Containment system is what follows. So toilet is a user interface. User interface plus what is connected to the user interface is your containment system. It could be offsite, it could be an on-site system, or you can have, you may not have a system altogether. So that's your containment stage, right? But when we say contained, we are talking about the same thing, whether the system was able to limit or restrict the pathogen transmission. That system is called a contained system, and that will turn the arrow green.
Excuse me, Bitush.
Yeah.
Kaushiki ma'am has a question. She is asking who are the respondents, and are we collecting the primary data, and what methodology could be followed for data collection. And I would request you to give simple in layperson language. Could you please elaborate on what kind of data is needed for level 1 SFD? It would be easy for participants to understand what kind of data should they collect.
Okay. So let me just see the time we have. Okay. So see, data collection, I mean, in very, very layman language, we are trying to map the excreta of the town. Okay. So we start with generally mapping the relevant stakeholders. From town to town, they might differ a little because the service providers, whether it's a parastatal or a ULB or so on and so forth. I mean, there can be, so you need to map your stakeholders who are responsible for sanitation service delivery. Also, there are stakeholders like masons, there are stakeholders like desludging operators. And if you're doing a lot level 3 or a comprehensive SFD, you do a lot of household level data collection as well. But the thing that is common across the levels of SFDs is called triangulation of data. That means there can be several reports that are done on a town, or there can be SBM MIS report as well. There can be ULB report as well. But while we are doing an SFD, we don't depend on just one source of information. We triangulate that information with another source. To take an example, when I'm doing a random household survey, for example, in the household, if I'm trying to check with the user what kind of system that is being installed, so the questions are designed in such a way, maybe we can share the list of questions and questionnaires and all of that, so that can be easily shared. So I'm not getting too much into that. But you can design your question in such a way that if a household is explaining the structure, and then they say, let's say they say that I have a completely lined structure. I'm just taking an example. Let's say a household says we have a completely lined structure, but we have not desludged our tank from last 20 years. So there is a mismatch of information, and that is where I think we try and capture and triangulate our information. So the question we ask to the masons: what kind of structures do you do generally in this colony or that colony? Same kind of question we ask to a desludger, that when you desludge a septic tank or a tank, what do you see inside? Do you see baffle walls or not? So all I'm trying to say is we don't rely on one information. We triangulate it through the secondary data available, through whatever primary data you collect, and through an important factor is key informant interviews. We do interviews of various stakeholders to capture the whole excreta flow story. I'm afraid I can't go too much deep into it, but I can assure you we can share what are the relevant questions we do ask. But as you go from level 3 to level 1, you are supposed to do some assumptions as well, because I mean, it's a fact we are talking about an Indian town here, and that you will get data for each and every stage, and for all 100% population, it's impossible. So you need to do some informed assumptions. Those assumptions can also be based on the story that you have captured altogether, and if there is a missing link, how your assumption can complete the whole story is what you need to think when you're doing an SFD. I hope I've answered your question and not confused you further.
Yeah, you have answered it.
Okay. So in interest of time, I would really like to spend a couple of minutes on the graphic generator. But this, I think this is the most crucial part, which tells us whether an arrow is red or green. We ask ourselves whether or not the pathogen transmission can be. So maybe I'll ask a small question here and somebody can answer. So what do you think is a septic tank connected to open drain? Can you call it a contained system or a not contained system? Anybody can answer, please.
Not contained.
Okay. Anybody else? What will you call, let's say, Shibal, you want to answer this?
No, many have responded a not contained system.
Contained. Okay. So I think you've got what I was saying, that, so for example, a septic tank connected to an open drain, a shit flow diagram will show it as a red arrow. And we have covered what is WW, what is FS, what is supernated. Okay. So let me go back there and put some light to the Sfd of Tiruchirappalli. Yeah. So let's try and understand the Sfd of Tiruchirappalli in like next 3-4 minutes. I think that will be helpful. So let's start from the bottom. Open defecation is 5%. This was way back in 2015. No need to explain this, but you can see the arrow is going down, which means that a general approach that Sfd uses is that as and when excreta in some or the other form is getting into the environment is not being handled well, then the arrow turns 90 degree and goes down. So what you see at the bottom is local area, neighborhood, city. So if at any stage, even if the arrow was green from left to right, but at any stage the excreta starts to get, or rather, there is some of the other kind of leakage or the pathogen transmission possibility happening, then the arrow turns 90 degree, it turns red and it turns down. And the tendency of arrow to continue from left to right continuously is that at least that percentage of excreta or population, you can say, is being handled, or excreta of that percentage of population is being handled well, which reaches to the extreme right. Otherwise, wherever there is a fall, the arrow turns red and it goes bottom, like this. So as we move from open defecation to, let's say, on-site sanitation, you can see there are two kinds of arrows. One is fecal sludge and the other is supernated. We just looked at the term contained, and that's the term being used here. So you can see there is supernatant not contained and there is fecal sludge not contained. And I guess now you can easily say that the reason fecal sludge is not contained or supernatant is not contained is that the system that is prevalent in Tiruchirappalli is not able to limit the transmission of pathogens. There might be septic tanks which are connected to open drains, and that's the reason you can see the red arrows. But then there are some green arrow as there is one green arrow as well, and you can see that the green arrow continues. So that divides into two arrows. One goes to fecal sludge, which is going to a treatment facility, and one arrow continuously goes from left to right. It is not stopping at any of the stages. In interest of time, otherwise I would have asked you what is a possible solution, but there is a chance that there is a small percentage of households that have done a twin pit latrine, where you don't really need to, if you properly handle a twin pit system, you don't need to really deal with the material which comes out of a twin pit system as you would deal with fecal sludge. You don't need to empty and transport and put it to a treatment facility. A twin pit system, if done well, what you extract from the pit is already a digested raw form of compost. And that's the reason you see that one small arrow which continues from left to right. It doesn't stop at emptying or at transport or at treatment. That means at the containment stage itself, we were able to handle excreta. And we did not need it to follow the chain of emptying, transport, treatment. So that's about the one green small arrow. Coming back to let's look at supernatant. Now, supernatant not contained is most likely the effluent from the septic tank, which is overflowing in an open drain. And now it might be possible that you are tapping an open drain and doing an STP. But that time in Tiruchirappalli, what was going into an open drain was not captured or sent to a treatment facility. So you see the red arrow, which is originating from supernatant not contained, goes down to, and it's mentioned 16% SN not delivered to a treatment facility. So that's about supernatant. If anybody has a question, please unmute yourself and ask, because I think I'm not able to look at the chat. Otherwise, I'll continue.
Just here, I just wanted to understand one thing. When you are saying supernatant not contained 16%, so 16% entirely was going into the open drain. So there were no soak pits, nothing there where it can be, considered safely disposed, the supernatant.
Yeah, that's a good question, Pankaj, for asking that. So not to really confuse people, but when we talk about supernatant with respect to a shit flow diagram, we only are looking at liquid component which goes away from the site. That means when a septic tank is connected to a soak pit, then that liquid does not qualify to be called a supernatant, because that liquid does not need to transport. That liquid does not need to go to a treatment facility. That liquid is still considered to be a component of fecal sludge. So I'm not, so this is not to confuse you, but the term supernatant is being defined in a shit flow diagram for only that effluent which overflows from a septic tank or any kind of tank and goes away from the site, whether through an open drain or through a closed drain or through a sewer network. But if the containment system is able to handle the liquid inside, when I say inside, that means septic tank plus soak pit, then that liquid does not qualify to be called as supernatant. And here the reason is more technical because that supernatant does not need any kind of emptying transport treatment. It does not have to go through all these stages. So that, in fact, this green arrow that is showing green from left to right could also be representing that portion of supernatant, if I can call it right now, which goes through a soak pit. So anything which is handled on site is still part of fecal sludge and not supernatant. I hope I'm not confusing here.
So in, I mean, as a bottom line, when we say that if there are septic tanks which are connected to the soak pits, and so they can be considered as good as a on-site sanitation, let's say pit latrines. So they do it. So this will run throughout the containment, emptying, transport, and treatment as a safe green arrow, isn't it?
Provided the groundwater table is not high.
Yeah, of course, sure.
So that's a small caveat there.
Yeah.
That's true for twin pit as well. I mean, if you do a pit latrine in a high groundwater table area,
right,
that's going to be red, irrespective of whether you're able to handle the excreta. So that's not handling, that's mishandling, of course. Yeah. So in essence, you're right. If you're able to, so septic tank plus soak pit is equal to a twin pit system with respect to handling excreta on site itself. In a sense, yes, you can say that.
So my second question would be, sorry, I'm this is a typical thing, so I'm just taking time. So my second thing would be then but sludge still needs to be emptied and taken to for the treatment.
And that's why the fecal sludge. So you see, there is a small arrow which is talking about fecal sludge delivered to a treatment facility.
Right.
And there is also fecal sludge. So of course, so if a septic tank is connected to a soak pit and it's not a high groundwater table area, then your arrow in on-site sanitation is also going to be green. The arrow which is fecal sludge not contained is going to only represent those kind of tanks which are overflowing in an open drain.
Sure.
So most likely, now I don't remember, I did it in 2015, this green arrow could be representing septic tank connected to soak pit.
Right.
And so you can see, coming back to fecal sludge not contained, the arrow is red because, and the reason the arrow is red is because the containment system was not contained. But you see the arrow turns green at the transport stage, which is fecal sludge delivered to the treatment facility. Yeah. So again, why I would say an SFD is a true representation of a baseline of a town is because it is the arrows which are red are telling you that there is some of the other kind of intervention required in that portion of or that stage itself. So, for example, Tiruchirappalli is doing good with respect to treatment of fecal sludge. You can see a green arrow which is saying fecal sludge delivered to treatment. But they need to improve on the containment stage. They need to improve on the emptying stage a little. But treatment they have kind of more or less handled well. They need to put energies to understand how they can manage supernatant better. Yeah. And
so, Vikash, just to sort of bring because there are many members who are at state level, they may not be familiar with this. So what we are trying to say is that even if you have 100% toilet coverage, it need not mean it is safe. To look at the overflows of the toilet. If it is a twin pit toilet, we consider it safe. Whereas if it's a septic tank without a soak pit, it is not safe. Septic tank with a soak pit, it is safe. Whatever is safe is green. And if it is a UGD with without a STP at the end, then it is safe till transport, but our treatment, it becomes red. So these are very layperson way of explaining the colors here. And the other thing is in terms of data, because, while you say it's a triangulation, tomorrow if someone has to start doing it, how should they collect that data? And do they do an estimate? And I'm saying this because ultimately it's a visual representation, and the shit flow diagram also keeps changing. So when we did it for our towns, about the 200 towns that we are working in AP and Telangana, we use broad estimates on the basis of sample surveys. So we did survey. So in a town, Narsapur, of 50,000 population and 12,000 households, we did a sample survey of about 1,200, 1,300 households. And then we had the town data of Swachh Bharat Swachh Sarvekshan to understand the distribution between septic tanks and twin pits. So just on the basis of these two, we were able to make our shit flow diagram.
Yeah. I mean, sorry to interrupt, but I would say you don't need that many random household surveys as well. You triangulate the data.
Yeah.
So, I mean, general thumb rule that we used to use for a small town was only 100 household surveys, and rest was we were able to do good number of interviews with all kinds of stakeholders, be it a mason or a desludger.
Correct. So these things like high water table and all these are that you collect from people on the field and nurture understanding. Now, having said it, how do we draw this thing out?
Sure.
Mr. Bitush, I have a question.
Go ahead.
This is Shashwat from Madhya Pradesh. Let's say we have a broken system.
Right.
It might be a broken slab of a septic tank, or it could be a broken pit, but it works. It is in its use, and it just works fine. Where do you put it?
Okay, so I'll answer both the questions that Maniji also shared. How do we really do this? And your question. I think we spent quite some time here, and when in a summary, Maniji just shared that what exactly is happening, and so just to conclude the discussion on this slide, what you see, supernatant not contained, you can see the arrow goes red, goes down, and if you do in Tiruchirappalli, treatment was happening for fecal sludge, and that's how the arrow is green towards the right. But as you move towards an offsite system, you can see 54% population is connected to a sewer network, but the 6% which is green, red, is households that are directly connected to open drains without any kind of a box, and that's how you can see a red arrow right at the beginning. But as you move from left to right, wherever there is any kind of a loophole happening, either the sewers are leaking or the sewers is not connected, there is a gap in between, and that's the reason not all the wastewater reaches the treatment facility. At the same time, there are some open drains which are being tapped and sent to treatment facility. You can see wastewater not contained delivered to treatment 5%. That reaches the treatment facility. That gets treated. So once it gets treated, it turns green. Again, just to conclude, each red arrow is going to tell you there is an intervention required, and green arrow you can tap yourself that portion at least you are being able to handle well for that town. So,
Bitush, sorry to intervene. I think it will be helpful if you can maybe I don't know if the time will permit us, but then just to give a quick snapshot of the graphic generator, like a filled in graphic generator, and show how the data is filled in over there. So, and how that automatically helps users generate that SFD.
Yeah, that's what I was going to do now.
Bitush, may I ask this? I had just a query. May I?
Yeah, please go on.
Yeah, actually, because if you see the implementation of Swachh Bharat mission, I mean, there are a variety of kind of toilets have been constructed. So if I consider this sit flow diagram, and I feel that we need to focus on contained and not contained. So do you think that, I mean, a toilet may be faulty in nature, I mean, faulty in terms of technology, type of septic tank, or maybe holding tank, but if it's not leaking or it's not contaminating any kind of environment, irrespective of the faulty nature, we can call it green.
So let me go through this graphic generator quickly, and I'll answer this question. Maybe it gets answered while we go through this as well. Just let me. I hope you can see my screen. So I've just opened this website called sfd.susana.org. What I'll just spend a few seconds here. So you get all that is required to do a shift flow diagram and all the previous SFDs here. The manual, this is the manual where you get all the terminologies, definitions. So we have defined all kinds of system possible. We have defined various terms and variables here, and also we have done it through diagrams to make people understand, because systems how you define in Africa may not be very similar to how you define maybe in India. So that you can get in the manual, and you have FAQs, you have online trainings and other resources here. But I still feel the most important thing on this website is the graphic generator. Before we go here, I can just quickly give you a glimpse of Sfd Data as well. This is a new application that we've come up with, Sfd Data, in which you could see how at a regional level Sfd looks like. But of course, this is not that you're contributing to, but this is more for understanding. Let's say we want to look at a scenario for the whole Asia Pacific. So I just click Asia Pacific, it generates an SFD using the 121 SFDs done in this region. It gives you an overview of Asia and Pacific, how various SFDs combined together looks like. You could just do India as well here, and you can see for 67 towns SFDs that have been uploaded on Susana, how at a cumulative level this conveys the story. So this is just to show you, you can play around with this. But again, going back to the most important thing, which is the graphic generator. Here you could actually open up an SFD from an existing town, or you can start your own SFD as well. In interest of time, let me just pick for one of the towns, let's say Agra. I hope my screen is visible and it's not too small.
You could enlarge it a little bit.
No, I think, Bitush, my sense is just give what data is captured, and that's it. And it generates a graph, that's all. So I think.
So I'll just showing you how you could use this tool. So as I said, that all kinds of systems that we could think are possible are available on this matrix. So there is list A on your left, which is the red color, and then there is list B, which is yellow at the top. If you want to choose a system, this is going to tell you what your toilet is connected to immediately, and then what yellow list is representing is what is this system, which is septic tank, whether it's connected to soak pit, or whether your pit is connected to whatever. So basically, as you hover around this matrix, you could choose any system. For example, I want to choose a septic tank which is connected to a soak pit, so I just click here. You can see there are two systems. Why two systems? Because there is a possibility of high groundwater table area and there's a possibility of low groundwater table. Similarly, if I want to choose, let's say a pit, I can choose a pit in high groundwater table area or a low groundwater table area. Somebody was asking if a toilet is failed. There is option of failed toilets as well. You could choose your failed toilet. What is it connected to? Just choose it. Yeah. Then there is no toilet, open defecation. You can choose open defecation. All I'm saying is, what you observe in your town, you need to translate that and select the appropriate systems rather, that are relevant to your town. Once you've done that, you move down and you press this button called Create Sfd Matrix. Now, what does this button do for you is, it is only going to ask you questions about those systems that are relevant or prevalent in your town. And the questions are very, very simple. Starting from what is the proportion of population dependent on that system, then what proportion of that system is getting, or let's say supernatant is, for example, we're talking about a centralized sewer. If 45% people are connected, what is the percentage of people of which the wastewater reaches a treatment facility? And what is the percentage of population for which the wastewater gets treated at the treatment plant? You just answer these questions for all the systems. Similarly, for fecal sludge, you answer how much is it, how many septic tanks, or what is the percentage of septic tanks that are getting desludged. Out of that, how many are really reaching a treatment facility, and then how many are getting treated. And similarly for supernatant. So what you see here, the greenish or the bluish color is representing wastewater. The yellow is more about fecal sludge, and the red is for supernatant. Those questions are for supernatant. And you answer these questions. Just you need to make sure that the very first column that you fill in is adding up to 100%. And then you press Draw Sfd Graphic. Once you press this button, the Sfd gets generated for you. It helps you to combine systems which are functioning in a similar way. Like, for example, we were discussing a septic tank plus soak pit is in a way behaving like a twin pit system. So it is going to get added up here in the Sfd, and you're not looking at individual systems, but at a cumulative level, what or how excreta is being handled at a city level is represented in the Sfd. So you don't have to think what is going to turn red or green that the graphic will do for you, but you need to answer these questions, which are again based on the systems that you choose from this matrix. So yeah, so of course, I mean, trying to cover a lot in one session might not be really suitable or fruitful, but I would suggest you go out and play around with this, and of course, you can ask questions whenever. Just to end to it, you can download. So let's say you tried to enter data, but you could not complete it. You can always download a JSON file, which means you can always open this JSON file and start from where you left. You can always download a graphic from as a PNG, and but if you download your JSON file, you can reopen it in this software. Right at the top, it says choose one of your own Sfd files. Once you do that, you could just choose your JSON file, and that's about it. Yeah, so my suggestion would be just play around with this and make a lot of assumptions that's completely fine for Sfd Lite or level 1 Sfd, and just justify your assumptions, why you take what assumptions you've taken.
Pratosh, can I ask something?
Sure.
This is Pratosh, and I'm from Assam UNICEF field office. So actually, my question is, while generating this graphic, it is already showing one drop-down arrow for the selection of the cities, right? So I am thinking in the context of the Guwahati city, and if I tell you something like in the baseline context of Guwahati, what we have is not so good primary data right now. So can we generate such sheets? What level? So based on that, we can compile it and we can make them understand that this is a situation in your different wards. So is there any provision in particular website? Can we do that? Because I think it's quite difficult to make them understand what kind of data we are looking for right now. So
yeah, just to answer that quickly, you could do SFD at any level, be it a ward or a town or several wards together, or some towns and villages together at a district level. You decide the boundary and then start feeding in the data. And what I said, the drop-down arrow, there were towns. Those are the towns for which the SFD is already done. But if you want to start a new SFD, then you need to start afresh, even at a ward level.
Okay.
You have to start afresh.
Okay.
I think Ram will kill me if I continue on SFDs further. So I'll.
Yes, please. Thank you.
I would suggest if you still have questions, you can of course write to Shibil or Maniji, and they can of course share it with us, and we can respond to them. Over to you, Ram. I'll stop here. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Vitush. I'm going to ask Professor Chari to just step in for a minute. While I think it's quite clear for city representatives, I think we might just want to touch base with the state representatives here in the group to check if they have any questions. So, Professor Chari, can you please do that and then give your comments as well?
Let me just summarize in what way we use some of these tools. While Vitush has gone into great details. In fact, I must say that I'm just coming from a meeting, not a meeting, but an inauguration of a fecal sludge and sewage management program in a capital city, Hyderabad. So we are just launched a citywide inclusive sanitation program in Hyderabad, where Minister K.T. Ramarao has launched a number of interventions as part of it. Now, while convincing him, we used this template to convey to him that while Hyderabad has a good sewerage system and also a good treatment system, but a number of peripheral towns within the city, number of peripheral zones in the city, the emerging areas of the city needs certain intervention, and we can't wait for next 20 years or 15 years for these investments to come, these projects to come to expand the sewerage system, to put up STPs under hybrid annuity model, which they are thinking of. So we could communicate to him that we need a set of interventions, and for that we used this SFD. So what we did, we don't have great data. Even in a city like Hyderabad, we don't have great data. So we depend on secondary data and then a bit of talking to the desludging operators, our own little bit of survey, 1 or 2% survey, and then we constructed. How did we do it? Very simple, Sanjay ji. हमने हमारा कितना टॉयलेट्स है, कौन सा टॉयलेट्स है, ट्विन पिट टॉयलेट्स कितना है, सिंगल पिट टॉयलेट्स कितना है, ओपन डेफिकेशन थोड़ा बहुत चल रहा है वो कितना है, उसके बाद सेप्टिक टैंक्स कितने हैं और सेप्टिक टैंक्स में कनेक्टेड है कि नहीं, सोप पिट्स कनेक्टेड है कि नहीं, थोड़ा बहुत सैंपल सर्वे, स्पीकिंग टू द डीस्लजिंग ऑपरेटर्स, उनके माध्यम से हमने ये डेटा कलेक्ट किया है और वो भी सैंपल के माध्यम से. 100% तो अभी कहीं पे भी नहीं हुआ और काफी पैसा लगेगा उसमें. और दिस इज अ इटरेटिव प्रोसेस. बिकॉज़ इवेंचुअली मैं ये डेटा क्या करूं, व्हाट एम आई गोइंग टू डू अनलेस आई हैव ए इंटरवेंशन टू टर्न एन एक्टिविटी इनटू ग्रीन. ठीक है, मेरे पास सेप्टिक टैंक्स है मगर वो सोप पिट नहीं है, मैं क्या करूं, कैन आई रिट्रोफिट. बट थोड़ा आइडिया होना चाहिए कि ये सैनिटेशन इंप्रूवमेंट होगा नहीं अनलेस वी डू दिस थिंग्स. रिट्रोफिटिंग ये ओवरनाइट होने वाला नहीं है, इसलिए 100% एक्यूरेट डेटा से कोई चलता नहीं. उसके बाद हमने ये मैप किया है कि ये कहाँ जा रहा है, ये वेस्ट कहाँ जा रहा है। वो वही बात वितुष जी ने समझा रहा है कि एक तो टॉयलेट टाइपोलॉजी क्या है और ये वेस्ट कहाँ जा रहा है, और उसके बाद ये वेस्ट ट्रीट हो रहा है कि नहीं। ये तीन चीज जो है, everything is presented in terms of number of households. If I have 100 households in my ward, what percentage of households are on what toilet typology and what sort of conveyance emptying systems that we are following is what he is trying to do. ये जो है चंचल जी ने बताया एडवोकेसी टूल, बट ये एडवोकेसी से थोड़ा ज्यादा भी जा सकते हैं, उसके इंटरवेंशंस क्या होना चाहिए वो भी हम सोच सकते हैं इसके वजह से। So it is a gradual process, as I said. We cannot replace everything overnight, but fecal sludge treatment कर सकते हैं, उसकी वजह से थोड़ा बहुत environmental improvement होगा। उसके बाद OD कम कर सकते हैं, उसके बाद environmental improvement होगा। Single pit toilets को हम twin pit toilets incentivization माध्यम से उसमें थोड़ा improvement होगा। उसके बाद इनसैनिटरी टॉयलेट जो डायरेक्टली नाला में स्टॉर्म वाटर में ड्रेन में कनेक्ट कर रहे हैं, टॉयलेट है उनके पास मगर डायरेक्टली जा रहा है, उसको थोड़ा थ्रू रेगुलेशन एंड इंसेंटिवाइजेशन उसको हम इंप्रूव कर सकते हैं। सो स्लोली वी कैन मूव इन द डायरेक्शन वेयर वी कैन improve the environmental quality of a ward or a zone or a city in totality. So this tool would be very, very useful, and many a times we take a 1% sample survey, काफी है, मगर एक as we progress we can improve. आजकल कुछ सीवी सिटी वारंगल में जो है 100% सर्वे किया हमने। जब हाउसिंग फॉर ऑल के लिए रेयर अर्लियर एक प्रोग्राम था रे बोल के, अभी हाउसिंग फॉर ऑल सर्वे में इसमें हमने जोड़ दिया, एक दो क्वेश्चन हमने जोड़ दिया है टॉयलेट टाइपोलॉजी। हम खुद का सर्वे करने का जरूरी नहीं, कहीं स्कीम्स चल रहा है गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया, वी कैन ऐड दीज क्वेश्चंस इनटू दोज सर्वेज सो दैट we can improve the sanitation component while they improve the housing and other related issues. So this is what Kaushiki ji is asked, where we need to build on existing surveys and then probably improve the SFD process, improve the sanitation improvement process over a period of time. So इसके लिए tools हैं, और tools भी अभी राम साहब ने बताएंगे, he will going to explain to you. So Dr. Manli, I think we can take more questions as we progress. Mr. Ram should proceed further. Thank you.
In the interest of time, I'll request members to post their questions on the chat room. And over to you, Ram.
Thank you, Professor Chari. Thank you, ma'am. Thanks, Bitush. I think that was really helpful. And hello, everyone. My name is Ram Krishna Paul, working as a senior consultant with Athena Infonomics. Just sharing my screen. Okay, I will try to keep the presentation very short. Try not to give not to have death by presentation over here, but just to give some basic concepts about explaining the tool, the FSM Toolbox platform. And given that Bitush has already talked into much details about the about SFD and how you can use, or any city can use SFD to plan or assess the current sanitation situation in terms of how the current infrastructural arrangement or on-site systems are arranged and how that how the waste is generated and flowed through the city. FSM Toolbox is more on the planning side, so it does have a component. So you can also access the SFD tool on the FSM Toolbox, but the FSM Toolbox is a planning tool which helps you actually understand what kind of interventions you need for managing the fecal sludge that is generated. And when we are talking about interventions, it talks about the number of desludging vehicles that you need, the volume of the desludging vehicles, the number of toilets for which it is currently unimproved, and the number of population that is dependent on community toilets or shared toilets, the number of population which do not have any toilet facilities, where can you construct toilet facilities, what is the size of the treatment plant, how do you design that treatment plant, what is the what kind of technology options that you have to can opt for or is more suitable for your city. So those are the kind of planning interventions the FSM Toolbox helps you with. And just to, there are several tools on the platform, but I will specifically, given the time interest and So I'll specifically focus on the citywide planning tool. So this is for any user or any stakeholder to plan for their city. You can either choose to plan for the entire city, or you can choose to plan for only a certain section of the city or a few wards of the city. And also in terms of while you're talking about the planning interventions, so these are the kind of questionnaires or the data collection instruments which are already there on the platform. So you have a city basic information that you need to capture. You need to capture data from households. You need to capture data from community toilets, from non-residential buildings, the institutional, educational, healthcare facilities, public toilets, desludging operators, the city's treatment infrastructure, and if you are also looking at planning for regional treatment infrastructure, suppose if a city doesn't have a FSTP or a treatment infrastructure, you can also plan for the regional wherever there is a nearby STP, whether it's accepting co-treatment facilities, or you can club 2 different cities or 3 different cities within a cluster, and you can plan for a regional treatment infrastructure. So the tool basically gives you all of these options, and you can select which one you want to do. It's not like you have to do all the components or you have to follow all the components of the tool. If a city's interest is only, or a city municipality's interest, or the current interest is only to plan for household or community toilet constructions, they can choose that module or that particular tool, and only those questions which are relevant to that particular tool will appear in the mobile application which is linked to this platform. So it's all of them are very much modular. So it depends on what is the interest of the tool of the user, and accordingly the user can choose which are the questionnaire that they want to deploy on the field. So just to give you a bit of an understanding of the entire process before I show you an actual demo of how to use the tool. So what are the key steps in developing any FSM plan? If I want to plan for my city, what are the kind of steps that I need to follow? And these are the essential key steps. You need to prepare a questionnaire. You need to design this questionnaire, that which are the questions or which are the data points that you need to go and collect from the field. You need to understand that, as Professor Chari was mentioning, whether it's a 1% sample size or somebody else was mentioning, should we do a census for the entire city? So it helps you understand those sampling size. It gives you guidelines to what kind of sample is statistically representative. I mean, like, we obviously do sample size to get a whole flavor of the entire city. So the tool basically helps you guide those sampling sizes. What kind of, the kind of mixes of areas that you need to select for the sampling size, whether you should cover the lower income settlements, it should cover the higher income settlements, it should cover the central part, which is if it is connected to sewer systems, if it is not connected to the sewer systems. It helps you, it guides you on the kind of sampling size. The training enumerators, data collection, we train the enumerators, and then we go to the field for collecting data, and then we analyze the data, and then we develop a report. This is the typical process that any stakeholder or any user or any organization would follow to develop an FSM plan. What the toolbox does for you over here is all of these 4 key steps: the questionnaire, the data collection, data analysis, and reporting is automated in the platform. So the platform basically helps you with all of these steps, and it's all automated within the platform. What, as a user of the platform, what you need to do is, the sample size is very much open to, the tool will suggest you a sample size, but then it's very much open to users to put a sample size which is much more relevant for their, the sample size depends on a lot of factors, right? Statistical representation is one part to it, but then there is financial constraint. That is, if you want to do, suppose you want to go in an incremental way and you want to focus only on a certain wards of the city, so you can choose only those wards. The sample size would be dependent on that. And the training enumerators. So the enumerators based on the questionnaire. So these are the only 2 processes which are not automated within the tool, because there's a lot of factors, a lot of contextual settings into it. And also with respect to the data collection, the tool helps you with a linked mobile application. I'll give you a bit of a glimpse of the mobile application. And you can also, sitting at one place, if you're operating from UNICEF Guwahati office, you can sit on in your UNICEF office, and you can look at how much of the data is being collected on the ground on a real-time basis. Like, if you have 100 households to cover, you will be able to understand out of the 100 households, how many households have been covered. you'll be able to also review the data so that you check the data and you do a quality check as and when enumerators are on the field collecting data, so that if there is any discrepancy, suppose if there is a volume of septic tank coming as like 50 cubic meters or 70 cubic meters, and you know that that is not possible, you can always review the data and recheck with the enumerators, and then analyze, and reporting is automatically done. So on the tool workflow, so as I mentioned, it's from a central server. You can initiate the data collection process. The enumerators will get a notification that whether they are willing to accept the survey or not, or take part in that survey or not. Once they click on that notification, yes, you will get a notification that yes, your enumerators are already on the field and they have agreed to carry out the survey for you. And then they can go on to the field and collect data from the households or the non-residential buildings. And as and when they collect the data from the field, you will get a response on the dashboard, on your toolbox dashboard, that you will be able to see the number of surveys covered, number of households, or the number of community toilets that have been covered across each category of the infrastructure that you have assigned the survey for. The tool has some basic assumptions in place where, like, for example, like benchmarks, like how many community toilet seats, or how many toilet seats can, how many population can one toilet seat cater to, male and female, how many public toilet seat can one, how much population can one public toilet seat cater to, again, male and female. So talking about adequacy of toilets, and these are some of the benchmarks, assumptions that you as a planner would input into the tool, and based on which your planning would be, you will get the output of the tool. The output is in both in a Word document format, in a PDF, as well as in a PDF format as well. So the Word document format is, the tool gives you some of the automated analyzed data on the field, from the field that you are collecting. But then we know that a tool can only do certain things, but then there's also a lot of contextual factors which goes into it as well. So like the socioeconomic background of the profile of the households, or some other contextual factors. So that's why the tool provides an output report in a Word format, so that you can always come back and edit and add your observations from the field as well. I will just go to the show you the platform and give you a walkthrough of the platform. So this is the this is how the toolbox platform looks like once you enter. So it's www.fsmtoolbox.com. It's open access. There is no, here I have already signed in. So you will not see a sign in option, but then once you are on the platform, you will get a sign in option to sign in and register. There is no charges or anything. It's public, open source. And just to give you a bit of a glimpse before we go on to the details of the Citywide Planning tool. So this is the homepage of the tool. You will have a video where it's a demo video on how the platform can help you across the different modules that is there. And you can see, like, you can click on learn more. So you can see also access the SFD from here. You would have, so SFD looks into the infrastructural part, city service delivery assessment looks into the policy, institutional, financial setup of a current situation in your city. So you can access both of these tools, and then you have the planning tools. So you can go, so under execute, you have assessment, and you can access the SFD, the CSDA, or if you want to do a combined both the versions, you can access those tools from here. You have the planning tool where you can have the stakeholder engagement tool. You have the infrastructure planning, and in the infrastructure planning, we have the citywide planning where you plan for your city, or you have a regional planning where you plan for a cluster of cities or a region of or a district maybe. We'll not cover this regional planning. I'll only give you a glimpse of citywide planning today. And you have a business model tool, which basically tells you what are some of the best cases across the globe, which are successful and sustainable business operating models across the value chain. So you can see all of those. So these are case studies basically across the globe, primarily looking at South Asian case studies as well as Sub-Saharan Africa case studies. And over here, you will be able to look at big business cases, as well as you will be able to contextualize those business cases and assess whether your current situation is with respect to, whether that particular business model is applicable or to your context or not. And once you click on each of them, let's go to planning. and you will have a demo video. So the demo video is entirely, right now I am talking, I'll be walking you through the tool, but then in case you want to look at any other platform or any other tools on the platform, you can click on the demo video. So each of the tool will have a demo video, and you can look at the demo video to get an understanding of how to proceed with that tool. Often people, so here's a Citywide Planning demo video. I'll not play it, but then I'll rather give you a walkthrough of it. But often people come to us and say that, okay, what are these questions that we are going to ask from the field, on the field, before even starting the survey? I mean, like, and it's also very helpful for you to plan how many surveyors do you need, or what kind of questions that you need to, that you have to collect from the households, or from any other, from the community toilets, from the public toilets, or from desludging operators. So you can look at the questionnaire right up front before even using the tool. And this will give you, so across household, community toilets, public places, public toilets, commercial, non-residential buildings, desludging operator, the kind of questions that you have to collect from the field. And it gives you a details of all the questions that you have to collect. So yeah, not wasting any further time, I'll just walk in through the Citywide Planning. I have already a pre-filled thing on my city, on my platform. But one other key feature of the platform is whenever you come back to the platform, everything that you work on gets saved in your dashboard. So if you start at doing any assessment or any planning tool, all of those as is, I mean, like, it gets auto saved, so that, I mean, like, because you will be collecting data from like 1,000 households to complete one particular planning assessment. So you may not be able to do it within like one setting. You will have to do it over a period of a month or a couple of months, or sometimes even 3 to 6 months. So all of those data, as and when you work on the platform, get saved on the dashboard, and you can log in and click on the dashboard, and here it will show, like right now it's showing me all the modules that I have worked on, and you can filter them across the different planning tools that is there, or the assessment tools that is there. I have already a pre-filled tool on Citywide Planning. So I have just clicked on, you just need to click on planning, infrastructure planning, and go to Citywide Planning. The first thing that the tool will ask you is, what do you want to plan for? Do you want to plan for household toilets? Do you want to plan for public toilets or community toilets? Or do you want to plan for a treatment plant within your city? You can select all, or you can select whichever you prefer to do, depending on your objective. Click on next. The tool just asks you basic questions, like it will ask you 20 basic questions about your city, like what is the population, the number of households, the ratio of men is to women. And for all of these questions, there is a hint given as well, so that it helps you understand that particular question better. Some of the, and the units are also mentioned. Some places we have also added examples. Like for example, you can also choose that what is the desludging frequency that you want to plan for in your city, the fecal sludge management interventions. Do you have any prescribed desludging frequency? If yes, no, do not know. And if it's a yes, then it will it will give you the and option to enter the what is the desludging frequency. Like for us, like the CPHU guidelines says that it should be 3 years. These are just dummy numbers that have been entered over here. But then you can choose and whatever the number is for your context. And then once you enter on the planning tools, then the planner asks you the enumerator selection. So you can basically enter the name of the enumerator that you want to engage for this particular study, and you enter their email ID. And the moment you enter their email ID and you click on invite, that enumerator will get a link to the saying that this particular user using FSM Toolbox has invited you to collect data from the field. Are you interested? Yes or no. Once they click on yes, the status will be shown as accepted over here. So these are all pre-filled enumerators, and you can enter as many enumerators as you want to. And once you've entered all the enumerators, you can click on the sampling and survey task allocation. And here, this is what this table will be not filled when you are doing it for a fresh city. But right now I have filled it already for a couple of wards, the number of households. So you basically enter the total number of households in this particular Excel, the matrix that you can see over here. And once you click on save data, then you can be able to see that out of the number of households that is there, the 505 households that you want to cover for your city, how many households have been already assigned. So you can click on here. So this is the select enumerator. So you can click on here, and all of the enumerators who have selected or opted to go out to the field and collect data from you, for you, would the names would appear over here, and you can select the names from this drop down. You can select the ward that you want to assign for that particular enumerator, and then assign them how many surveys that they need to collect across the different categories, whether it's a household, community toilets, non-residential, public places. So, and these all things are very much contextual. So, like as I was mentioning in the first slide, that if you want to plan only for your households, you can choose that. Then your community toilets will be deactivated. So you will not be asked again to enter data for community toilets over here as well. And you can assign tasks. So the moment you assign tasks, that enumerator in their mobile, they will get a link to download the mobile application. I will show you the mobile application as well. And they will be able to, they will have the questionnaires for all of these things, all of these categories that you have assigned to that particular enumerator. Just to give you a glimpse of this question of the mobile application. So this is the mobile application. As you can see, it's called FSM Collect. And this FSM Collect here, you can see that you have been, so this particular, it will say you hello and welcome to this platform. And you can see the number of assessments that you have been asked to enter data for. It may be multiple assessments that has been assigned to you. And once you click on them, they will show you that for households, how many surveys that you need to fill in, for community toilets, how many surveys that you need to fill in. And once you click on that, you can, so this is already a pre-filled survey that was done, but then you can always edit it. And if I want to edit it, you can click on the edit option, and it will show you all the questions that is there. The questions have a lot of skip logic. So if it is not relevant to you, it will skip to the next question. As you can see, some of them are grayed out. And once you enter, it will take the GPS location automatically from your mobile phone. And then once you just need to swipe right to go to the next question, and swipe left to go to the previous question. And if any of you have used Open ODK for data collection, the features are almost similar to that, but just the questions are already inbuilt into the platform. And you can you can click on that particular question, collect data from the field. Some of the questions also have photos in it. Sometimes household owners do not understand the difference between a twin pit or a single pit. So it also has those options to have photographs inbuilt into the questionnaire. And once you answer all of these questions, you can click on send. The moment the enumerator clicks on send, you will get the data on the platform. So this is a basic understanding of the mobile application. And then, coming back to the platform, it also helps you understand how many desludging operators that you want to survey. Out of the total 23, you can, how many do you want to collect data from? So you enter their assigned, and you can choose the enumerator. So it's all the same process. And then you can also enter data on the treatment plant site. I mean, like whether to understand the site suitability or not. There are certain questions linked to the site selection. I will not walk you through the questions, all of them, but then once you have entered data for all of these, you can see this is the real-time monitoring, which will help you understand how many surveys have been completed across the different categories. And you can also, since it's all GPS located, so all GPS coordinates are attached to the units. So all of them, you can see that which are the households that have been selected. And you can always upload a map, like a shape file for your city or your zone or ward, and it will lay this GPS coordinates on that map. Or in case you do not have a shape file, you can also select it. The Google map already also loads up as well. I'll show you an example for that. And this is the review data option. You can select the category that you want to review the data for. Let's take households. And this will show you the, do you have a toilet? I want to review the answers for, do you have a toilet in your house or not? And these are all the data that has been collected. So and it will tell you where has been that data collected and what was the answer given for this particular household. So all of these, so it will tell you the latitude, longitude of the data, and whether it has a toilet or not, or in the case any of the other questions that you select from this drop down list. Then once you have reviewed the data and then you click on next, it will ask you for certain assumptions, as I mentioned in my slide PPT deck as well. Once you click on finish, it takes a couple of minutes to run the algorithms in the backend and then provide you the output. Like just to give you a quick view of the output as well. So this is like for the household and community toilet construction, it will basically tell you the total households in the city. Just a second, it's just loading. Given that there's a lot of data in the background, it takes a couple of minutes to 3 to 4 minutes at max to load all the data. But then you will get a entire visualization of which households in the city do not have access to toilet, which households have access to toilet, and both in case of individual toilets. Households which do not have access to toilet, whether there is enough data, enough space available for construction of a new toilet. If not, then if yes, then it will suggest for a construction of a new toilet, individual toilet. If not, then it will go on to suggesting what is a nearby community toilet that you can depend on. If there is any questions on the chat box, I think there's a lot of things on the chat box happening until this loads.
Yeah. So Ram, there are people are commenting that this is a very practical tool, and there was a request that if you could show the dashboard also, which I think you have done.
Okay.
And there is also a question that if is this a free access, open access, or
yes,
a proprietary product?
It is an open access. There is no proprietary. The only thing is if you want, sometimes what happens is, and this is one of the requests that we have got several times, is so the tool is free to use. There are questionnaires, but then the tool is very much limited to fecal sludge management planning. Oftentimes, like a Department of Public Health or like any other organization, if you want to go out to the field, and since you are doing a data collection, there are chances that you want to collect data, not limited to fecal sludge management. You want to collect solid waste data. You want to collect water supply data as well, given that you are doing a 100 households or 300 households survey. So is there a possibility to modify the tools, modify the questionnaires? Now that is something which is not free of cost on the platform. And in that case, I would suggest you to get in touch. There is a contact at the rate of fsmtoolbox.org. Get in touch with the contact database, and then that would be that would come at an additional cost. But then the tool as is on the platform is open access and free to use.
That also answers Mr. Chanchal's question that since there's a global tool, if you want to edit or customize it for making it, so that's your answer to that.
Yeah. Coming back to the platform, so it will be, so all of these are like filters. So basically these are all the households that you have surveyed in the city, and you want to understand the total households with toilet facilities in their premises, and you'll be able to click on each of the households, and you'll be understand the availability of a toilet, if the number of population, the total population, the type of system, whether it's a fully lined tank or it's a septic tank or it's a holding tank. So you will get an option for those, and you can click it for all of them.
Internet, having a facility to internet is a must, because if you want yes or no.
Yeah. So on the platform, Malini ma'am, yes, it is. I mean, like, it is essential to have internet access to have this platform open and function for you. It is not mandatory for the enumerators who are going out on the field. For them, internet is not a mandatory option. They can choose to collect data offline. Once they have access to internet, they can click on that send button. So let me just show you on the mobile application. So here is a send button. I don't know if it's visible or not, but then this is a send button. This send button will not be active unless you have an stable internet connection. You can, but then it doesn't mean that you will not be able to collect data. You will be very much able to collect data. It will be stored in the phone's memory. Once you have internet connection, you can click on the send button, and the platform will receive that data from the field.
So that would be true for the lat long as well?
No, the lat long it captures it from the GPS coordinates are captured within the using the phone's bandwidth itself. It is not dependent on to internet connectivity.
Right. Thank you.
It's like the GPS coordinates. Yeah.
I think there's one more question from Sanjay ji. He wants to know if this is relevant only in urban context or applicable in rural as well.
It can be applicable to rural context as well, though we have not tested it in rural areas. But then the kind of systems like this is some question which also came from for the SFD session as well, that whether it's applicable to rural or to. So the thing is, like all of the on-site systems categories or the drop down of options that is available, it is also available. I mean, like, so all of the systems which are applicable to rural areas are also inbuilt into the system. So I do not see, I'm like, though we have not tested the tool in a rural context, but then it is very much applicable to rural areas as well.
From your experience, what is the plus minus on the GPS coordinates?
So I know because we did it from an, it usually, it gives accurate, but then there are certain, I mean, because it is linked to Google, so analytics, so it's not, it takes the most accurate. I mean, like it also depends on the phone that you are using. I have seen personally that Enumerator's phone has a lot of effect on the quality of the GPS coordinates as well. But then usually it will give you around the same place that the household is located in.
Thank you. Any more questions from the participants? You can please open your mic and ask.
Yeah.
Aram, would you have more to cover?
Yes, just a couple of minutes just to show them the kind of outputs. Yeah.
Yes.
So yes, and this. So if I click on the total households without the toilet facility, it will show me all the red ones. If I click on them, it will tell me that availability of toilet is no. And it also gives me a sense of the total male population and the female population that is there in that particular household. So you know that what is the requirement for that toilet construction within that particular premise, and then it will. And it will also tell you out of the ones which do not have access to toilet facilities, which of them has sufficient land available to construct a new toilet. There you can see that what is the land availability in terms of square meters. Also, the households, as I was mentioning, that the mobile application also collects the type of, it shows options in terms of the on-site system, and it also takes into consideration what is the preference of the household to construct an on-site sanitation system, and they can choose from a drop-down depending on the size available. Though the mobile application automatically suggests the kind of on-site systems which is applicable to that particular area. And then it also captures the user's preference on the type of on-site system. And then you can go on to the community toilets tab, and you can basically say that, okay, these are the households with the red ones are the households which do not have any toilet facility and which do not have access to or do not have the land for building a new toilet facility as well. And then you can see what is the community, where are the community toilets located within the city. And you also ask a question in one of the questionnaires in the mobile application. You also ask how much kilometer are the households willing to travel to access a community toilet, and this perimeter of that particular community toilet, one marked in orange, is basically showing that how many households fall in that particular range where the households are willing to travel to that community toilet. You can also see what is how many toilet seats are there within that particular community toilet, male toilet seats, female toilet seats, and the tool also helps you understand. So there is also one other option on the mobile application to collect data on vacant land for proposed public toilet or vacant land for proposed community toilet, and that is the proposed community toilet sites the tool takes into consideration. Obviously, just because from the field it comes that these are the potential sites doesn't mean that that site is easily available for building a community toilet, but then the tool provides you a rough estimate on, okay, these are the lands where it is available and these are the kind of infrastructure, the number of toilet seats that can be considered in that particular land, how much is the land available, and based on the toilet per toilet, what is the land requirement. So it will also tell you that what are the number of toilet seats that can be constructed, and depending on the male to female ratio, it tells you whether it should be a female toilet seat or a male toilet seat. So that is and the tool also provides you, so for the households which do not have access to individual toilets, the households which do not have access to build individual toilets in their premise, or the households which do not have access to any community toilet as well. The tool also suggests those households for mobile toilets. So this is on the households and community toilet construction. Similarly, on public toilet construction, it will show you which are the existing public toilets, which are the proposed public toilets, how many toilet seats can be constructed. So it will, and I'll not go into the detail of it, but then just to give you the essence, like what the tool is, and just I'll show a couple of more things. One is on the vehicle procurement, which is like often we ask, right, that how many vehicles should we buy for the city? What should be the capacity of those vehicle size? So the tool basically helps you out of the total surveys that you have done. Based on that, it extrapolates to the entire city, and it tells you how many of them have access to good road width. So those are the ones where a vehicle or a desludging vehicle can easily access. So those are the ones with a more than 3 meters road width, and how many properties are located in poor road access as well. And it gives you a split of all the categories of properties within that particular category. So like, for example, there are close to 2,000 households which are located in poor road access within the city. You can click on this and it will show you the properties with good road access, and it will show you from each type of system or each type of infrastructure what is the total generated, the fecal sludge that is generated from that particular category of households or category of building property. So it will tell you per KLD or per cubic meters per day what is the fecal sludge generated, and the total fecal sludge that is generated for that particular categories of for that particular properties located in poor road access or good road access. And you can plan it for the current year, you can plan it for next 5 years, short term, 10 years, medium year, or 15 years, or a long term period like 20 years as well. And dependent on the population projection rates and the other rates as well, growth rate. So it will help you estimate how's the population expanding and what would be the fecal sludge generated after 10 years or after 15 years. Like for example, right now it's showing 2 cubic meters. If I select it for next 15 years, the total, it changes to 3.5 cubic meters as well. So, and then it helps you. And given that these desludging vehicles are often locally manufactured, and the volume of these desludging vehicles are very much varying as well, depending on the local manufacturer's quality. So you can enter, the tool basically helps you understand the, suppose if I want to have only 1 cubic meter capacity desludging vehicle, so it will tell you that the total fecal sludge that that particular tool can handle, or that particular vehicle can handle, is 5 cubic meters, given the number of trips that has been accounted for from the desludging operator survey. So it will tell you that 5 is the 5 cubic meters, 5 trips it can make in every day, and 5 cubic meters is the total volume of fecal sludge that is emptied, that it can cater to. And you know that your generated is only 4 cubic meters or 3.5 cubic meters. So you know that that is already a surplus. If there is no surplus, you can always add on vehicles and then finalize the vehicle procurement. Yeah, there is always a GPS coordinates which shows you which are the households that you are catering to. So oftentimes it also happens that often users are as technical experts in the field, we are often confused that whether to follow a actual method. Like, people are getting often confused that which method to follow for for estimating the total volume of fecal sludge that my city is generating. There is the actual scenario planning for volume of on-site sanitation systems, or there is a sludge accumulation rate method as well. So you can choose this. So the tool basically helps you guide through both the options, and you can choose for, this is for your current scenario, this is for the total sludge accumulation based on the sludge accumulation rate method. What is the total that the city can produce? So essentially, from a planning perspective, you should build for the current situation, and then you can incrementally plan for what the future generation would look like. As and when you have the policies, you have the enabling environment set up. And then similarly for the treatment as well, you will get to understand what is the total fecal sludge that is generated for the current year or for upcoming years as well. And then the treatment plant site, whether it is suitable for your treatment plant, for construction of a treatment plant or not. So depending on these factors. And then eventually it will help you given like look at the potential treatment technology options, which is applicable for your city. Whether it's given the land conditions, given the city's O&M expense requirements, the electricity requirements, if a city wants to focus on reuse, what are the kind of technology options would cater to them? And depending on all of these inputs, the treatment options are given across pre-treatment, solid liquid separation, dewatering, tertiary treatment, or further treatment. So you can click on that and you will be able to see what are the different technologies which are suitable for your context. Like for example, a settler or an Imhoff tank, or like you can look at the solar drying or a sludge drying bed would be more suitable. We have not gone into the initially when we were discussing about this particular tool or designing the tool, there were a lot of recommendations and a lot of discussions around should we also prescribe the financial requirements for a tool or for the design recommendations for the tool. But then we choose not to include them eventually, is given that the tool is a global tool and being used across different continents and across different countries and cities, these costs vary completely, very widely from one city to the other city, as well as also from one country to the other country. So that's why and also the design recommendations, it's also very much context specific and depends on the engineer. I mean, like me being an engineer, I can construct a settler in like a particular, if the land is available to me, I would reduce the reduce the height and increase the surface area, or if or I can increase the height and reduce the surface area. So it depends on the engineer how they want to design, and depending on the land availability, depending on the financial resources available. So that's why those are the two aspects the tool doesn't go into. But then it will help you. It does give you further reading materials and guides you to the different sources available. You can download the report in a editable report for template, like in a Word format. You can download it in a full PDF format. Oftentimes what happens is you can also download the data that you have collected from the field in an Excel-based format as well, which is compatible to any other editing, like any other analysis tool like SPSS or R. So you can upload this Excel downloaded from here to any other data analysis tool as well. You can share it within your organization or with anybody's email. So these are the and so this is the option of the, like, that is just to give you a glimpse of what the Citywide Planning tool can offer you. This is the same kind of a thing, which is also, I mean, like whatever just I walked you through is also available in a video format in the video that over here. And similarly, it's also done for the other modules, other tools on the platform. So please feel free to explore it, walk through it, I mean, like navigate it, use it. If you have any questions,
Ram, this has been extremely useful and very informative. And I'm going to throw the questions at you and request you for like a rapid fire quick answers, because we already crossed time. How many cities in India have used this tool for FSM assessment and baseline?
So we have used it for, so there was like 5 cities in Chhattisgarh, the SUDA office for Chhattisgarh, they have used it. There was another set of two, like for SUDA itself, they have, so in India, it would be close to around 10, if I'm not wrong. We have used it extensively in Bangladesh and Nepal. So in Nepal, there are close to 25 cities that have used it. We have used it in like close to 15 to 20 cities in Bangladesh as well, and in sub-Saharan Africa. So there's in South Africa primarily. So those are the some numbers, and you can also see where the tool has been used from the about page. You can see who are the. Okay, Malin ma'am, please shoot me the another question. I will meanwhile walk you where I will just look at.
Basically, you've given the numbers and also said that more information is available on about.
Yes.
Then there's a question.
Okay, this is the toolbox in action, and it will help you understand which city has done how many tools or implemented how many tools.
India showed 149.
Yeah, so if you click on India, you will see that there are different modules. So it's not only, so these are the modules that has been used for.
Okay. Then there's the question, can you include co-treatment?
So yes, so co-treatment is also included. I will show you just a second.
No, don't show. It's okay.
Yeah. So yes. So it tells you that yes. So co-treatment at an existing STP. What is the? I mean, like whether it's possible within the city, outside the city, nearby the city as well, or not, or and how many KLD of fecal sludge can it handle? Yeah.
Yeah. And also there are some questions which require a little bit of elaboration in terms of survey tool and which organization and all that. So what we will do is that we will send you a set of questions which are there in the chat box, Ram and Vitush, and request you for your responses so that we can share it with all members, because because of the exceeding time, some members have also left. So it'll be useful to everyone.
Sure.
You'll send your consolidated list basis your responses earlier. We will try and frame some answers, but if you could just refine them and send it back, it'll be very right. So thank you very much to you and Vitush.